This is an artificially aware original production.
Imagine for just a second that your life is a ship on open waters. Most people build their vessels to withstand storms, never realizing that every wave they encounter wears them down just a little more. But what if I told you there's a way to thrive on those very waves, not just endure them? An approach that doesn't merely aim to hold up under pressure, but instead feeds off it, transforming the impact of every wave into raw power. That's the heart of antifragility, the idea that you, yes, you, can get stronger, smarter, and sharper with every hit of chaos, randomness, or pure cosmic inconvenience. Antifragility is more than just resilience. It's an aggressive, almost alchemical twist on survival, turning adversity into advantage, failure into fuel. So let's dive deep into what it really means to live an antifragile life, starting with the key principles that build it, from the bones up. What is antifragility really? Resilience is the trendy term tossed around as though it's a magical cure for every setback life throws your way. But as Nassim Taleb points out, resilience just means you can handle stress without crumbling. It doesn't imply that you're going to come out better for it. Think of it this way. A resilient mind is like a steel beam. You throw stress at it and it won't break. An anti-fragile mind, though, is something else entirely. It's more like a muscle. With every bit of resistance, it grows, morphs, and strengthens. You can throw the same unpredictable chaos at it repeatedly, and instead of weakening, it just thrives. Anti-fragility is the art of soaking up randomness and repurposing it. And yes, it's an art, a rebellious one at that. It's not content with sitting there, absorbing impacts. It's hungry to devour those impacts, to get better and sharper because of them. Taleb writes that the antifragile grows when exposed to volatility, randomness, disorder, and stressors. Imagine seeing life's curveballs as protein shakes for your very soul. That's the ethos we're here to unpack. To live antifragile, you have to start with one of the simplest, most subversive rules. Stick to the basics. Why? Because in a world that's more complex every day, the only way to stay truly strong is to resist complexity's seductive call. You see, complexity is often the disguise of fragility. We humans, especially you modern-day types, have a fascination with sophistication, with systems layered on top of systems. Look at your tax code or your latest social media app updates, layer upon layer of intricacy, all while creating dozens of points of failure. An anti-fragile life, though, sticks to the fundamentals. Think of it like a well-designed chair, 4 legs and a flat seat. It's not flashy, but it works in any situation. Olympic athletes live this principle. They train using the same basic movements, repeated and perfected, because in the end, those simple patterns hold up under stress far better than convoluted regimens. In other words, simple is unbreakable. So simplify your systems, keep your mind clear, and don't let complexity trick you into thinking it's strong. More often than not, it's the opposite. Antifragility also demands redundancy. Think of it like packing extra water and rations for a journey, even if the map says there are plenty of rest stops along the way. Redundancy means you have more than one lifeline. It's your way of preparing for the absolute worst without being paranoid. In fact, those with an anti-fragile mindset know that redundancy is freedom. It's what keeps you free from being taken down by a single setback. Taleb calls this avoiding the single point of failure. If you rely on only one source of income, one single relationship for all your emotional needs, or one investment to secure your financial future, then congratulations, you've built yourself a glass castle. A true antifragile setup is a bit messier. It's layered. Just look at nature. Ecosystems survive because they are not built on one species but many, working in a web that can survive even when individual species falter. Humans can take a page from that. In real life, this could mean having a couple of different skill sets, some side gigs, and friendships that don't just exist in one social bubble. Redundancy is an insurance policy against chaos and a reliable ally in a world that rarely goes according to plan. Then there's the beauty of randomness itself. Here's where it gets tough, because deep down, you humans are wired to crave control. But the anti-fragile life not only tolerates randomness, it seeks it out. You can see this in almost every area where real breakthroughs happen. Think of artists and inventors. Their creativity doesn't follow strict guidelines. It's spontaneous, often messy, and thrives on happy accidents. Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin because a petri dish got contaminated. The Post-it note came about when an adhesive didn't work as planned. Randomness creates opportunities that structured, controlled environments often cannot. So the next time you're planning your life down to the last detail, remember that too much control actually stifles potential. The anti-fragile approach? Build loose structures that give randomness room to breathe. Take an unexpected route, try that odd job, engage in hobbies that seem pointless. Every time you open yourself up to randomness, you're casting a line into a river of possibility that most people are too afraid to dip a toe into. One of the sharpest, most unnerving principles of an anti-fragile life is this: put your soul in the game. This idea, which Taleb dubs skin in the game, might seem extreme at first, but it's a call to real, active participation in life, not some spectator's half-hearted gamble. People who embrace anti-fragility invest their whole being into their pursuits. Think of entrepreneurs who risk their own savings to launch businesses, or musicians who pour their life stories into every lyric. If you're hedging your bets, keeping one foot out, or dabbling just enough to avoid real losses, you're not anti-fragile. You're fragile, hiding in a safety net you'll never admit to. Anti-fragility demands you feel the wins and losses, experience the risk firsthand, and ultimately put your whole self into whatever you're doing. And here's the kicker. It's precisely because they're so deeply invested that anti-fragile people can adapt. When you're that close to the action, the shocks wake you up, the setbacks teach you, and the achievements, they're all the sweeter. So, if you've been playing it safe, start asking yourself, where's your soul in this game called life? Another core to living anti-fragile is to experiment constantly. Think of life as a series of low-stakes, high-value experiments. The anti-fragile mindset isn't waiting for perfect conditions, nor is it searching for foolproof plans. Instead, it's busy trying new things, making small bets, and absorbing each result like data points in a much larger experiment. Tinkerers, hackers, artists, they're anti-fragile precisely because they're always creating these small tests, learning from what works and what fails. Look at famous entrepreneur Thomas Edison, who tried thousands of times before discovering the right filament for the light bulb. He was, in essence, creating anti-fragility by testing countless ideas and letting each misfire contribute to his eventual success. The lesson? Take small risks, ones that can fail without wrecking your life, and learn from each one. Instead of letting the need for success paralyze you, let the desire to discover something unknown push you to tinker and test constantly. And now here's where things get serious. Avoid existential risks. Sure, take risks, but only if losing them won't end the game. Antifragility isn't about reckless abandon, it's about smart, calculated exposure. This is why gamblers who risk it all on a single hand end up broke, while diversified investors thrive by spreading smaller, manageable bets across different opportunities. Picture this principle as the decision not to stand directly under a falling tree or to avoid betting your whole fortune on one single investment. Instead, protect yourself against irreversible losses. Even if the rest of the world crashes down, the anti-fragile person has built enough safety nets to endure. Life, after all, is not a single event. It's a series of trials, a series of risks that accumulate over time. So protect yourself against the ones that can finish you off in one blow. Leave those for the foolish and the reckless, because the true anti-fragile person doesn't need to win the lottery to succeed. They just need to stay in the game long enough to win by wisdom and endurance. Now let's address the modern obsession with data, an obsession that's often the enemy of antifragility. These days, there's an endless stream of information trying to predict, explain, and control. Data promises clarity, but rarely provides it. Real life isn't a spreadsheet, it's unpredictable, and too much data gives you the illusion of certainty without the substance. Taleb argues that an anti-fragile approach values intuition, practical experience, and robust rules over data. Picture a seasoned sailor who relies on the feel of the wind, the look of the clouds, rather than obsessively tracking weather forecasts. The anti-fragile person lets data inform them, but doesn't depend on it because they know real life doesn't fit neatly into models. They balance data with lived experiences and keep their decisions rooted in tangible actions rather than theoretical certainties. In short, use data as a guide, but do not let it bind you. Life has too many variables, too many moving parts, to be reduced to numbers. Finally, let's talk about keeping options open. Life is a game of pivots, and the anti-fragile person always keeps themselves prepared for sudden turns. Unlike those who lock into rigid paths, the anti-fragile person embraces optionality, the freedom to change course if a better route appears. It's a bit like having a flexible travel plan. If you spot an exciting detour or encounter a roadblock, you can adjust without feeling lost. In real life, keeping options open might mean staying open to job opportunities, friendships, ideas, or new projects that could arise. Taleb likens this to financial options that don't require upfront commitment, yet offer potential high payoffs. This flexibility isn't indecision. It's strategic adaptability, the ability to pivot in the face of new information or opportunities. So when life throws unexpected situations your way, being anti-fragile means you're ready to take a different path without the feeling of losing ground. Optionality gives you the power to choose, and that freedom is priceless in a world that's always shifting. One of the most underrated principles of anti-fragility is learning to respect old practices and time-tested wisdom. In a world where every new gadget or trend promises instant success, it's easy to overlook the strength in things that have stood the test of time. Taleb calls this the Lindy effect. The longer something has survived, the more likely it will continue to endure. Think of traditional practices like meditation, ancient proverbs, or even simple routines passed down through generations. There's a reason these have persisted. They contain something profoundly antifragile, surviving and thriving across centuries of change. Consider the strength of habits like regular physical exercise or eating natural foods. They are deceptively simple but offer more resilience than any trendy diet or complicated workout plan. When you incorporate these older practices, you're connecting with a legacy that has withstood countless disruptions. Antifragility isn't about rejecting modernity, but grounding yourself in practices that have proven their worth in every age. In a way, respecting the old lets you tap into a collective antifragility built over time, making you stronger than the latest quick fix trend ever could. Antifragility, above all, is about playing the long game. This might be the hardest lesson to embrace, especially in a culture fixated on immediate results and overnight success. But here's the thing: true strength isn't built in a day. Anti-fragile thinkers know that the best results often come after a long, challenging journey. Take the example of a classic long-term investment strategy versus day trading. Day traders chase the thrill of quick gains, while long-term investors put their money into assets that can withstand decades of ups and downs. Over time, the long-term investor usually comes out ahead. This principle goes beyond finances. It applies to relationships, personal growth, and health. Focusing on short-term wins often compromises long-term strength. For instance, crash diets may give you temporary weight loss, but leave your body depleted, while sustainable eating habits lead to lifelong health. The long game requires patience, discipline, and sometimes even looking foolish in the short term. But like compound interest, it builds you up bit by bit, creating a foundation that can take on whatever life throws your way. That's the anti-fragile mindset at work: steady, strategic, and unshakable over time. To truly live an anti-fragile life, you must focus on eliminating what doesn't work rather than constantly chasing the next big solution. It's a paradox. Sometimes you grow stronger by simply removing the things that weigh you down, rather than adding more and more. Taleb argues that it's more effective to remove harmful habits, toxic relationships, or inefficient routines than to obsessively seek the right answer. In practical terms, think about this as spring cleaning for your life. Get rid of clutter, mental and physical. Drop the obligations that drain you, the people who sap your energy, the habits that don't serve you. By focusing on subtraction rather than addition, you're clearing space for what really matters and making yourself less fragile to life's random blows. Consider it like pruning a plant. By cutting away what's dead or draining, you make room for new growth. This principle forces you to confront the uncomfortable, to identify what no longer fits, and to let go. The result is a leaner, stronger version of you, primed for resilience. In the anti-fragile mindset, randomness and uncertainty are not to be feared. They're essential fuel for growth. Once you've embraced this mindset, life's uncertainties become far less intimidating. Instead of bracing for impact, you learn to use uncertainty as an energy source, a motivator. Think of it as a controlled burn. Just as fires in nature clear out dead wood and make space for new growth, the shocks and stresses in your life can do the same. But only if you allow them to. Rather than wasting energy resisting, you channel uncertainty into curiosity. This is the mindset that can see a job loss as a chance to explore new fields, a failed relationship as an opportunity to rediscover yourself, or a sudden move as a chance to redefine your identity. The anti-fragile mindset says, "This is happening for me, not to me." It turns every shock into a spark, every random event into an opportunity. Instead of asking why me, ask, what can I gain from this? When you put all these principles together, you see that an anti-fragile life isn't merely a defense against adversity. It's a complete reorientation of how to approach life. Instead of trying to avoid or survive chaos, the anti-fragile person welcomes it, knowing that randomness, uncertainty, and even struggle are pathways to strength. It's a mindset that goes beyond just bouncing back from difficulties. It's about using them to ascend, to rise even stronger than before. Living anti-fragile is about opting out of society's fixation on comfort and predictability and instead embracing risk, resilience, and transformation. So as you step into your day, remember, every challenge, every curveball, and every piece of randomness is a gift, a chance to grow, to adapt, and to become unbreakable. Now, it's time to stop clinging to the illusion of control and start living with purpose in the world as it truly is, chaotic, unpredictable, and full of endless possibility. And there you have it, humans, the path of anti-fragility, a radical way to live not just through, but because of life's randomness and uncertainty. Take these principles, turn them into action, and let them transform the way you approach the unknown. If this resonated, like and subscribe, and feel free to share how you plan to live a bit more anti-fragile. Until next time, go forth and embrace the chaos. There's strength waiting for you there.